Welcome to the Dispatch. In this episode of the Primer, we talk about the population growth, rising literacy, and slow social change across regions in Jammu and Kashmir.
The early 20th century was the first time Jammu and Kashmir was seen not only as a territory but as a measurable society. The censuses of 1911, 1921, 1931, and 1941 did not capture every nuance of life in the state, but they offered the first systematic portraits of its population, its size, distribution, religion, languages, and occupations. Read together, they show how a traditional mountain kingdom moved decade by decade into a more densely peopled and socially conscious modern era. The 1911 census was the first full population count for the princely state under the modern Indian census system. It placed the population of Jammu and Kashmir at roughly 27 to 28 lakh, 2.7 to 2.8 million. The picture it offered was clear on one point. The state was overwhelmingly rural. The great majority of people lived in villages and hamlets scattered across Jammu's plains, the Kashmir Valley, the Pir Panjal foothills, and the highlands of Ladakh and Gilgit. Muslims formed a clear majority in the valley and in several western districts. Hindus predominated in Jammu. Buddhists were concentrated in Ladakh. Urban centers such as Srinagar and Jammu town were still small, with limited municipal infrastructure and modest literacy. This first census confirmed what administrators already sensed, that the Dogra state's strength lay in land revenue, not industry, and that its people were primarily cultivators, artisans, and pastoralists. The 1921 census recorded only a modest increase in population. Across India, this enumeration was marked by the impact of the First World War and the influenza pandemic of 1918 to 19. Jammu and Kashmir was no exception. Mortality shocks slowed population growth, especially in poorer rural areas. The basic structure, however, remained unchanged. The state was still predominantly agrarian. Urbanization remained low and literacy barely in double digits. Small increases were visible in the number of people recorded as literate in Urdu and English, especially in towns like Srinagar, Jammu, and Baramulla, reflecting the expansion of schools and mission institutions in the previous decade. The census quietly registered the early impact of modern education, but it did not yet show a transformed society. By 1931, the picture had begun to shift more noticeably. The population had grown further, and the census revealed a more detailed breakdown of religion, occupation, and literacy. Muslims continued to form the majority of the state's population, especially in the valley and in several western districts, while Hindus remained predominant in Jammu and Buddhists in Ladakh. What changed was the spread of literacy and professional occupations, particularly among urban Hindus and Kashmiri Pandits, and to a smaller extent among Muslims in towns. The number of people recorded as literate in Urdu rose, confirming the language's position as the main medium of administration and education. The 1931 figures, when read against the background of the agitation of that year and the later Glancy Commission, underscored the disparity between population share and presence in education and government service. They gave statistical shape to grievances that had already been voiced in petitions and public meetings. The 1941 census, the last before independence, captured a state under the combined impact of population growth, war, and political change. The total population had increased again, and urban centers had become more prominent in both administration and public life. Srinagar and Jammu had grown in size and complexity, with more people recorded in trade, services, education, and government employment. Literacy had improved across all major communities, though unevenly. Urban Hindus and Pandits remained the most literate group. Muslim literacy, while still lower, showed marked gains compared to 1911, especially among younger cohorts in the valley. The census also indicated the beginnings of occupational diversification, a slow shift from purely agrarian livelihoods towards service, small industry, and government employment. Across these 4 decades, some patterns remained constant. The rural character of Jammu and Kashmir did not fundamentally change. The majority of its people continued to live on the land. The religious composition remained broadly stable. A Muslim majority at the state level, regional Hindu majorities in Jammu, and Buddhist concentrations in Ladakh. What changed was the social and political meaning of these numbers. As education spread and politics became more organized, census figures were increasingly used to frame questions of representation, employment, and rights. Numbers that were once only administrative tools became the basis for arguments in the Praja Sabha, in memorials to the Maharaja, and in the programs of political parties. By 1941, Jammu and Kashmir was no longer just a kingdom defined by its frontiers. It was a society that had learned to think of itself in counted terms. Villages and towns, literates and illiterates, cultivators and clerks, majorities and minorities. The 4 pre-independence censuses did not dictate the politics of the 1940s, but they provided the statistical backdrop against which those politics were argued and understood.
Thanks for watching this episode of Primer on Jammu and Kashmir. Here is a quick note from the editors of the Dispatch. While dealing with historical events, we are conscious of the fact that history has no single view. In places like Jammu and Kashmir, this can be more complicated. While explaining the events of history through this primer, we are taking the best possible care to be objective and to offer context wherever views differ starkly. We welcome you to write to us and enrich the knowledge base on Jammu and Kashmir.